Now, when you place in an image, you'll see that it already has it selected, and it has like this blue X. That is so you can change the size of it, which is great. You can rotate it if you want, which is how you do that. My suggestion, and Command Z is how you undo, is if for some reason this clicks off and you didn't get it to where you want it to be on your picture frame, just remember that the transform tool is Command T, and that's just going to be your best friend. It allows you to move it, change the sizes. But when you import your image in or place your image in, it is already going to have the transform tool selected for you. So just so you know how to get it back is Command T. So I'm going to kind of make it large so when I'm editing it, I don't have to zoom in super fast or super close, sorry. So to zoom in, it would be Command plus. To zoom out, Command minus. All right. So now let's talk about your different selection tools, because those are honestly the tools you're going to be using the most in this project. You're not going to really be using other things. So your selection tools are over here. You have your marquee tools, your lasso tools, and then what I'm going to call like your quick select and other such tools, okay? So really quick on what these do. The marquee tools, and if you hit Control click, it'll show you the marquee tools that are available here. We have a rectangle and an elliptical. So just like you would think, if you use the rectangle or square one, whatever you select is going to be within this area. Now, if you want to invert your selection, so let's say you want to change what is selected not to be within the square, but outside of it, you would just hit this invert select. And what that does is, let's say we want to get rid of what is selected and we hit delete. And then that pops up, just say, okay. Just let me. This is actually important for me to say. I was going to X out and do this, but if it for some reason doesn't let you do that, what you're going to want to do is hit Control click on your layer and hit rasterize layer. That's going to tell the computer that it is yours and you want to edit it and not maintain what it was to begin with. All right, and then we'll just hit delete. So inverting that selection means that I'm now selecting the space around what I selected so that I delete it. Now Command Z to undo that. I'm going to go back to the original selection, and that shows you that when you hit delete, your selection is within the square that you used. So the marquee tools are really great if you just want to kind of select a really large general area and use that. And you again have the square and rectangle and the elliptical to do that. If you want to select multiple areas, you can do that by holding down Shift, and you can select multiple areas so that when you hit delete, it has these areas selected. Okay. If you want to use the elliptical tool, you hit Control click and select the elliptical tool. In that way, and I'm going to invert the selection. I can delete around it, or Command Z to undo, invert selection, delete what's within. Okay. And deselect obviously is to deselect it. Okay. And if for some reason you want to create a really funky shape and have the elliptical and utilize the rectangle marquee tool, which does sometimes come in handy. I'm not going to say I don't use this. Just make sure you hit Shift before you draw another thing, and then it'll combine the shapes that you selected for a general selection. Okay. Which is kind of nice if you want to like select bigger areas and not have all these individual selections. You can combine what you're selecting, and you can do that with 2 ellipticals, 2 squares, whatever you want. Okay, so those are kind of your shape marquee select tools, is if you want to select and work on areas of an image defined by shapes. But obviously that's pretty limiting. So I would say that's your simplest form of selection. And then the next up would be your lasso tools. And this allows you to draw what you are going to select. So we have our polygonal lasso tool, magnetic lasso tool, and the lasso tool. These two, I don't use terribly often, but I will talk about what you can use them for. The magnetic lasso tool kind of guesses what your edges are, and it'll kind of adhere to it like a magnet. And you can kind of rough draw, and it'll try to guess sort of the best that it can. But you can see definitely not perfect, especially if you have kind of an organic background like this. But it's a rough and ready way to sort of select what you're wanting to select, if it's the birdhouse here, in a way that you're not just having to use a shape, right? So it's like the next level up for creative control in what you're selecting. So again, if I delete it, it shows you the area that we have selected. Okay. Next up, we have the polygonal lasso tool. The thing I like about the polygonal is if you have something with hard edges, you can kind of use the tool to kind of like define it with points. So because this is kind of triangular, it's a pretty good selection tool for that, because I can kind of just like, again, in sort of a rough and ready way, use the hard edges of this subject matter to sort of roughly trace my image. And I'm not holding anything down. I'm just clicking points along the shape. And you hit enter when you're done, and that shows you what you have selected. Okay. Again, with invert select, you can see. And it does a pretty good job. And then you can kind of go in with your eraser tool and maybe like fix the smudgy little things that you don't want. Clean it up a bit. Okay. Control click, and I'm going to show you the lasso tool. And it's the same kind of premise, but it can be kind of nice for things that don't have a hard edge, like the polygonal lasso tool. So let's say we kind of want to like just draw, and I am holding down my mouse to do this. So this is not points like the polygonal lasso tool. And it shows you that you can just kind of use the lasso to draw what you want to select, press delete. And let's say I just wanted to get rid of that, and it's gone. Okay. So quick review. We have our marquee tools, which allow us to select in shapes, and we can select in multiple shapes holding down our shift key. So select, shift, shift, shift. And now we have multiple areas selected. Okay. If we want to combine a selection, hit shift, combines it. There we go. All right. Marquee, select in shapes. Then our lasso tools, we select with drawing. So our lasso tool is how we can draw around by holding our mouse down, and that allows us to select that way. Polygonal is great for hard edges, and you do it with clicking points around the thing and then selecting it. I'm not going to go through that process again. Double click if you want to, get out of this tool, and just press enter, deselect. That tool can be really annoying to try to get out of, because if you've selected a point, this is what it does. So you can just hit escape if you want to escape. That tends to be what I do. And then your magnetic lasso tool is if it has a pretty not busy background, kind of like this, or there's not a lot of going on, it can guess what your edges are. And you can see it does a pretty good job. So that